Hello. In this video, I will teach you how to set up the game, how to set up LiveSplit, and how to add a gamma filter to OBS so that your recording isn't pitch black, basically. This is meant for PC, but console speedruns can do most of the things PC can. There's a playlist on my YouTube channel for console-specific stuff, but yeah, this video is meant for PC. If you have the game on Steam, GOG, or Epic Game Store, it's all fine. It's going to work just the same. I'll be using Steam, but it doesn't really matter how you got the game. So let's begin with installing the game. We want to be on the latest version, actually. So I'm just going to go ahead and install it. Once it has finished installing, you just want to hit play and play. The game is going to be very loud the first time you launch it, but you just want to hit escape on these two screens. And then just enter a profile name. I'm going to go ahead and go into options and lower the audio right away. Keep it at either 1 or 2. I've already lowered it a lot in OBS, so I'm going to put it back up. There we go. So we can configure stuff from the options within the game first. It will just be a lot smoother. Let's go into options and begin with game. It's important to turn off death hints because there are some parts of the run where you purposely die, like you do a death warp, and there's some text on the screen. And if you have this unchecked, then you just save time. The reload sequence happens quicker. The same with hints, you can also turn off that. I prefer to have subtitles on. It's quite nice because the first frame you see the final monologue from Alexander is when time ends. So I recommend to have subtitles on, actually. Alright, so let's go into the graphics section. You can do the run with texture quality set to high, but I recommend choosing low, just because there are some clips that require precise visual cues, and it's a lot easier to find these visual cues on a low texture quality. So if you want to play on high, then you might need to practice that a bit on your own to make sure that you're still looking in the same direction, but the visual cue might be a bit harder to spot. It's really important to crank gamma all the way up to 2, because we skipped the lantern in this run. Nothing happened on the recording. I'll cover that aspect later, because increasing this won't actually matter for the recording. You'll have to go into OBS and add a filter. So let's go into the advanced options. So if you play on high quality, you can keep a lot of these on. The important parts is to turn off post effects. Here you have things such as insanity. You definitely want to turn this off, otherwise your screen will wobble and shake. So I turn everything off or to the lowest, just because I play on the lowest settings, but you don't have to turn everything to the lowest. It's just important to turn off these, because these just make it really difficult to line up certain clips and things like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and uncheck and lower everything there is. Sometimes I keep this on. And when you hit OK, it's going to say that, oh, you need to restart the game. And we're almost done with the settings now. Let's go into input. I highly suggest turning smooth mouse off, just to lower latency. I prefer to be on 0.8 sensitivity. This is something you'll have to play around with to see what you like. This is for a controller, so we won't even bother with this. And then key configuration. We'll set up this in Notepad later on, so don't worry about this right here. And then sound, yeah, I usually play with like 1 or 2. The game is very loud. So yeah, let's just exit the game. And now let's figure out where we have installed the game. So for me, it's since I have it on Steam, it's installed in my Steam folder. So I'll go ahead and find my Steam folder. You can pin this if you'd like in quick access, so it's a bit easier to find. So I prefer to do that. So if you check out the folder Amnesia.artisan in the installation folder, you'll see Amnesia and Amnesia no Steam. You might not see multiple applications here, depends on which version of the game you got. For instance, if you got it on Epic Game Store, then there's no Steam, because it's already not Steam. So it's only if you're on the Steam version. If you're on the Steam version, you want to make sure that you choose this application to launch, because there's a glitch called reload warp, or load warping for short. Not really shorter, but it's a more common term. And if you play on the Steam version by launching the game here, load warps will be extremely inconsistent for whatever reason. But if you launch it with the no Steam application, they will be 100% consistent. So it's really important to choose this one. The only downside is that you won't have your hours tracked. But I've heard there's a workaround for that if you're really interested in getting those hours up. But yeah, so this is the one you want to choose. If you're not on Steam, like if you're on Epic Game Store or GOG or whatever, then whatever you have is fine, like this one. But you want to right-click the application and go into Properties, because we're going to cover the next important thing, which is slippery physics. So the game can, at random upon map load, activate something called slippery physics. It's the physics engine acting a little bit strange. It can happen on any version of the game, on any PC release and any console release. And it can happen without you even trying to activate it. It's actually faster to have it activated at all times for this run, because there are some clips that are just really easy with slippery. And the way to activate it on Windows consistently is to go into the compatibility tab after you're doing properties, and then choosing run this program in compatibility mode for, and then just picking any of the options here. Most people just choose Windows 7. You can pick Windows 8 or probably even 95. I haven't tested all of them, but some people have tested more than Windows 7. If you have an AMD GPU, you might experience stutter issues with this. It might just be old AMD graphics cards. We're not completely sure yet, but it seems to be a running theme that if you are on an AMD GPU, then slippery physics, like using compatibility mode here, might give you stutter issues. If it does, then you probably don't want to play with slippery on, so you don't want to have this checked. I can leave some links in the description for clips that don't require slippery if you are one of the people that run into this issue. But most people seem to not have an issue with slippery. But if you do, there will be some backup things you can do. Slippery saves a nice chunk of time overall, but it's not the biggest thing. It's not absolutely huge. But it is very nice to have slippery. It makes the run a lot easier in some parts. So you just want to check this box and then pick any option, like 7, and then hit apply. So now when you launch this, you will have consistent load warping, which I'll explain what the trick is later on, of course. And you will have slippery physics active at all times. So that's everything on the game itself. So let's go over some simple settings. All right, so if you go into the folder called config and then open game.cfg, you can open this with Notepad or any text editor that you like. And you search for max autosaves. Well, you choose down, not up. So the game will save a maximum of 20 autosaves before overriding previous ones. You can have 2,000 if you'd like. I usually just add another 0, so we have 200. It's plenty of autosaves. It just makes it way easier to go back and practice something that you hadn't, like, after you've done a run, so you have some maps loaded and some maps saved. It's just like a nice quality of life thing. So I should suggest doing that. So just Control S, like save that, close. Then let's go into menu.cfg. And then here, you want to go to the bottom all the way at the bottom of the file and see, I'm going to look at text duration mul. So some users experience that the game will crash if they input anything on a loading screen, because when the game is loading into a next map, there'll be a picture and there'll be some text, and when the loading is complete, the text will rise a little bit, but it won't go away before a certain amount of time is up, or if you hold down left mouse click, or left mouse button, left click. So holding down left click on loading screens will save you like minutes over the run. But some people have the game just straight up crash if they input anything during a loading screen. So to even the playing field, we allowed a little edit here, so you just have 0.0. It's equivalent to just holding down left mouse button. So yeah, so if you have this issue, then you can just do this edit. But honestly, it's such a nice quality of life that even if your game doesn't crash, you might as well just do this. It's just to level the playing field. All right, so let's save and exit that. And now let's go over the config for your user. So if you go into your documents and then Amnesia, and then you might have another folder here. This is A Machine for Pigs. If you don't have that game installed, then there won't be a folder, of course, but the main one is the one for Dead Artisan. You want to open up main settings, and here you want to find load debug menu false and change this from false to true. This is for practicing purposes, as the debug menu allows you to change maps really quickly, allows you to see textures, allows you to see like lines of, like collision lines, things like that. It's a very, very handy tool. For runs, of course, it's performed on like the vanilla game, no debug menu, no dev tools, no quick save, quick load. So this is just for practice purposes, or like practice and strat discovery and research and things like that. And then there is another thing called show pre-menu. I can spell. There it is. If you set this to false, when you launch the game, you won't get those splash screens. It just says like, oh, this game was developed by X and Y. So if you just turn this to false, then every time you boot the game, you'll save a little bit of time IRL. Now let's close this and go into... Oh, by the way, I didn't specifically mention this, but as you can see, I don't have the game open. It's not like anywhere in the background. It's important that the game is closed before you make any changes to the CFG files, the CFG settings. Otherwise, it won't save. So just make sure that the game is completely closed, like I closed it earlier. So now go into your profile, and then start with user settings. And then there's one called allow quick save equals false. Change this to true. So quick save and quick load, it's like a save state, if you're familiar with that. Extremely handy practice tool. Not allowed for runs, of course, because it is debug stuff. It also disables fall damage. So you're definitely not allowed to use it in runs, but it's really, really good for practice. So definitely recommend having this set to true, so it makes your practice sessions a lot easier. A lot better, a lot more efficient. So let's save and exit that and go into user keys. So in this game, you can jump like an absolute maniac. You can boost up walls, up pillars, things like that. And it's way easier to do this if jump is bound to mouse wheel up and mouse wheel down. So first we're going to locate jump primary and change it from Keyboard.Space to, I'm actually just going to copy paste this in. I'll leave all of this in the description, by the way. So we don't jump with spacebar, we'll jump with MouseButton.WheelUp, and then the secondary, because you can have two things bound. The secondary will be the other direction of the mouse wheel. So instead of a gamepad, like a Xbox controller or something, we'll have the other direction of the mouse wheel. So whenever you scroll your mouse wheel up and down, you will jump. And this makes it a lot easier to get vertical boosts. You'll chain a lot of jumps together to climb up slopes and things like that. Really, really, I mean, the game would be completely different without this tech. So that is the most important thing that you rebind. You can still use the spacebar, but it's not going to be efficient at all. and certain boosts might be impossible. Depends on like how hard you want to go. The second thing is the interact action. So, you know, interacting with an object, clicking on a door is just left mouse button. You just left click. We want to leave that one alone, but we want to change the second one where it says a gamepad. And instead we want to use mouse button wheel up or down. And this is so you can do something called ladder jumping. So you can interact with a ladder. So you attempt to climb it, and then you jump off of it. And then you climb it, jump off, climb, jump off. And you just chain that together to jump up a ladder really quickly. It will save a lot of time in sewers, but anytime there's a ladder, of course. So you can have this either mouse wheel down or up, it doesn't matter. And the game is totally fine with you having different keybinds. And like here you have a down as jump and interact, and that's fine. So yeah, either down or up for the second interact key. And then finally we have crouch. You can leave crouch as left control, but it's not really all that intuitive to move your little finger over to control. I prefer spacebar. Some people prefer F. I like to leave my fingers on WASD, so my thumb is just resting over spacebar. If I were to use F, then I would have to let go of D. So I prefer spacebar for that reason. Let's see, crouch. So I'll leave the left control one alone, because we'll just edit the secondary one. So secondary one will be Keyboard.Space. So crouch. There we go. And if you want to have F, it's just Keyboard.F. But I prefer space. A lot of people use space. This is so you can do a crouch jump. There are certain clips that require you to be crouched while jumping to fit through the ceiling. So it'll be either spamming crouch or timing a crouch input while you're spamming jump. So it's handy to have this on a more convenient key than left control. All right, so that's it for all the configurations. We can just close this and close this. Let's talk about LiveSplit. So if you go to the speedrun.com website for Amnesia: Dark Descent and go into resources, you'll find splits for all the categories. We'll be focusing on Quitouts. You can also just make all the splits yourself if you're familiar with LiveSplit. This is just a file that just has all the map names. There are some different strats you can use, like here it says includes route-specific splits for choir, because it is faster to Loadwarp back and forth when you're in the choir section. Again, I'll get to Loadwarp in just a second, but well, not in this video, but in the next video, or well, you'll see very soon. It happens very early on in the run. So you can make some slight adjustments to the route, just like adding an extra map here or there to Loadwarp, like back and forth. I won't talk about it too much more. But yeah, so just download this. I actually already have it downloaded. Let's see. So LiveSplit. I won't teach you how to download LiveSplit. There are plenty of awesome LiveSplit tutorials out there. But let's say it's the first time you're ever using LiveSplits. You just get it and you want to open up the splits. Let's close this actually. So let's open up from file. And here is the LiveSplit file. And there it is. So Amnesia ASL, that is the load remover. It says that this game uses game time, which is time without loads, as the main timing method. So your load time is subtracted from your final time. LiveSplit is currently set to show real time, which is time including loads. Would you like the timing method to be set to game time for you? This is a nice little reminder that you might not be on the correct comparison method. So just click yes, and LiveSplit will change your compare against from real time to game time. Because if it's the first time you're opening LiveSplit, real time will be the default. And we don't want to be on real time, we want to be on game time. Because game time is time without loads. So let's go into edit splits. And here you can see at the top, load removal and automatic start split reset are available. And since it says deactivate over here, it's already activated. So go into settings, and you want to uncheck the one that says reset. For the category no major glitches, glitchless, or like the categories no major glitches, glitchless, and no quitouts, it's fine to leave this checked. But for quitouts, like any percent quitouts, it's recommended to turn this off, because you can accidentally hit start new game when you're doing something called dialogue skipping. And if you do, your time will reset like as soon as you can upon hitting start new game. But if you have this unchecked, then you can actually hit exit game, go back to the main menu, and just reload your last save, and your run will still be saved. So I recommend turning this off for at least for this category. So it will auto start, it will auto split, it will split on the level changes, so whenever you go from one map to the other. So really handy stuff. Just hit OK, and just hit OK. So these are all the splits. You can make some adjustments, like storage. You can choose to have storage in 2 trips. We'll talk about that later. Because if you look at choir, there is choir 1 and choir 2. So this is choir split up into 2 segments, which isn't needed per se, but it's a little bit faster. So there are some adjustments you can make there. Same with transept. Transept can also be split. But I think I will base the tutorial on these splits. I will talk about the alternatives, but this is the most intuitive way of learning the game, I would say. So that's LiveSplit. Let's go over how to add a gamma filter to OBS, because otherwise, when you play the game... So now let's launch the game with the NoSteam application. Just double click it. There's the profile. Still very dark, so let's fix that. I'm going to show my OBS. So if you right-click your game capture and go into filters, you can make a color correction. I'm just going to delete that. You click plus here, and then color correction, call it whatever you want, okay, and then gamma right here. The default is 0, 0. You just want to increase it a little bit. Go up to, I believe I had 1.20. 1.25 or 1.20. I think these values look nice. If you slide it all the way, it's going to look awful. But having it be 1.20 or something like that is very nice. And then you just hit close. And when you open the game now, it will look a lot better. So again, this is how it used to look like. Very dark. Now it's a lot easier to see. If you leave it at, like, if you don't do anything, your run will probably get rejected. So you need to increase it a little bit. You can play around with it. Like, this is way too much. You don't have to have that exact value I showed you. Just make sure that it's visible for the person who's verifying your run. If you want to record in lossless quality, you can record at 0 gamma, and then in post with the editing software, you can increase it there. That's like the way to get the most out of the quality of the game, I guess. But that's a bit more advanced. So yeah, that about covers it for the setup.